I flatlined in the ICU, 11 full seconds. When I came to, a nurse with kind, startled eyes asked if I wanted to call my family. He didn't know they were off vacationing in Palm Springs. I only learned that from the note they left beside my hospital bed. It said they'd be gone for 12 days and hoped I'd be better when they returned. So I waited. Quietly. I healed alone. And then I made a choice. I sold the house, emptied the accounts, and vanished. By the time they came back, I was already gone. The very first thing I remember is the flatline sound blaring from the monitor and the jolt through my chest when they brought me back. I had no idea what day it was. My whole body ached and my mouth was so dry I couldn't even whisper for help. The nurse's name tag said Brian. He had a warm face, soft around the eyes, but that morning he looked panicked, like he hadn't expected me to make it. I tried to ask about my girls, but all he said was, "Just rest, Mrs. Harris." That night, after the shift changed, I overheard Brian talking quietly on the phone near my bed. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. "Yes, ma'am. She's stable now. Yeah. She's awake. Would you like to speak with her?" Then a pause. "Hey, got it. Just thought you'd want to know." I lay there under the harsh fluorescent lights, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard, that my own daughter didn't even want to talk to me. That ache in my chest came back, sharper than the stroke itself. I spent 8 days in that ICU. No visitors. No flowers. Not even a phone call. When they finally let me leave, Brian was the only one who offered to push my wheelchair. He looked almost ashamed to be the one doing it. I got home in one of those hospital vans and had to sit outside for 20 minutes because the emergency key I kept hidden in the ceramic frog by the porch. It was gone. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Jenna or Luke standing there. It was Matt, my son-in-law, holding a Starbucks cup and looking like he'd seen a ghost. He mumbled something about their flight being delayed, said they were planning to stop by tomorrow to check on me. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. Furniture had been moved. The walls were half-painted. My wedding photos were shoved into a box in the corner like they didn't matter anymore. And right there on the dining table, a real estate flyer. It was my house. The headline read, "Charming Southern Home, perfect for young families." I'd never agreed to sell it. I hadn't signed a single thing. Then I noticed the folder sitting open on the kitchen counter. Power of attorney documents. My signature was there, dated 2 years ago from that small surgery I had. Back then they told me it was just in case. I guess that in case moment had arrived. And while I was unconscious, they used it to start wiping me out. I sank to the kitchen floor. My legs just gave out. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I reached for Luke's old iPad near the pantry. It was still charged. And lucky for me, Jenna hadn't logged out of her messages. That's when I saw it. House goes on MS Monday. If she's not home yet, we'll start assisted living intake. Let's be real. Mom was never good at boundaries. That's what my own daughter had written. Like I was some burden to check off a list. But I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just got up, walked to the pantry and pulled out the shoebox where I kept my emergency cash. Then I grabbed the handwritten ledger I'd been updating since 1998. All my passwords, every single one. Because if they thought I was going to sit back quietly while they packed my life into boxes and shoved me into a nursing home, they clearly forgot who taught them how to fight. The next morning, I waited until Travis left for whatever made-up errand he had going. As soon as the door closed behind him, I walked straight into what used to be the guest bedroom. Only now it looked more like a staging zone. Half my clothes were folded on the bed, some stuffed into plastic donation bags, and the drawers from my dresser? Completely empty. They didn't even have the decency to ask what I wanted to keep. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't a mistake. They weren't getting ready to support my recovery. They were preparing to erase me. I grabbed the iPad again and went through the rest of the messages. Josh had texted Megan from the airport. "Once Mom's house sells, we'll have room to breathe." Room to breathe? From what, exactly? From the woman who raised them while working 2 jobs after their dad passed? From the one who bailed them out when Travis's business tanked? Or who babysat every single summer so they could take their trips to Miami and Key West without paying a dime? I sat down at the kitchen table and opened that file folder again. But this time I looked closely at the paperwork. The power of attorney they activated wasn't the one I remembered. It was a broader one, notarized during my hip surgery. The one Megan had shoved in front of me while I was still foggy from morphine, telling me it was just for insurance. I remember signing it and thinking it's no big deal. But now, that signature was being used to dismantle everything I built. I called the lawyer who'd written my original will, Eric Callahan, one of my former students who now ran his own firm, and I told him the whole story. He listened without interrupting, then said, "You're not the first, Diane. But we can fight this." He had me come in that same day. We reviewed every page, and just like I hoped, he confirmed it. The power of attorney didn't allow them to sell real estate without my direct consent. "They're overstepping," he said, "but if you move now, you can flip the whole thing." And I did. Eric filed to revoke the power of attorney and reinstate my full legal rights. Together we began the process of selling the house, this time under my name. I didn't want to save it. I just wanted to empty it before they did. That night I stood in the doorway of the living room, the same one where we used to set up the Christmas tree. I stared at the faint outline in the carpet where the couch had been and told myself, this is it. The last time I look back. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving behind the idea that they were still my people. They weren't. They were strangers who wore the faces of those I loved. And the most dangerous part? They truly believed I didn't have the strength to walk away first. I didn't waste a single breath confronting them. What good would that do? They'd already tuned me out. And I wasn't going to sit there waiting to be boxed up like a worn-out sofa no one wanted anymore. Eric moved fast. In just 3 days the house was officially under my control again and the sale was relisted. This time with me calling the shots. First thing I did was change the locks. Then I spoke through the Ring camera and told Travis to come pick up his tools before I donated them. He didn't argue. Just grabbed his stuff in silence and left the gate open behind him like the coward he is. I didn't tell a soul where I was headed. Not even Eric. I sold everything except a few things that mattered. The photos I couldn't part with, my late husband's old watch, and a box of crayon drawings the girls made back when they still remembered how to love. The house closed in 11 days. Cash buyer. No questions. I walked into the bank, shut down every account they had access to, and opened a new one at a different branch under a slightly different version of my name. I used my grandmother's maiden name, Grace Bennett, and cashed out the rest of my funds as money orders, keeping them in a locked travel pouch hidden under the passenger seat of my car. That old silver Corolla was the last thing I held on to. No one noticed it, too dusty, too plain, and that was the whole idea. The night before I left, I sat in the middle of my empty living room on a plastic folding chair. I ate a peanut butter sandwich off a paper plate and wrote 2 letters, one to each daughter. I didn't point fingers, not exactly. I just wrote, "You showed me who you truly are. Thank you for the lesson." I left the notes on the kitchen counter, unplugged the fridge and took the spare key out of the ceramic frog in the yard. By sunrise I was out of Savannah heading north on Route 81. No GPS. No plan. Just me looking out for me. I wasn't running. I was removing myself. There's a difference. They wanted a life without me in it. Well, now they had it. By the time I crossed into the next state, I'd burned through half a tank of gas, 3 cups of diner coffee, and every last bit of grief I had left for Savannah. Then I saw a billboard for Pine Grove Library, friendliest place in Vermont. And something about it felt right. I pulled into Pine Grove without thinking twice. I checked into a rundown motor inn, paid cash for a week, and introduced myself as Grace Bennett, retired librarian from Stillwater, Kentucky. Widowed. No children. Starting fresh. That was the version of me I gave them. And the strange thing? It was shockingly easy to become her. No one asked questions. In a place that's small, people figure you're running from something, and they respect you more for it. I found a tiny trailer behind a bait shop. Fully furnished, $580 a month. No lease if I paid in cash. The guy who showed it to me, Jim, only asked one question. "You smoke?" I didn't, and that was that. I bought groceries at the local family store, signed up for a library card under my new name, and started shelving books there twice a week. Within 10 days I'd become a familiar face. The quiet lady with the soft southern accent, the one who always remembered to ask how your mom was doing. That's how I met Hannah. A 27-year-old waitress with tired eyes and a little girl named Rosie who clung to me like we'd always belonged together. By week 2 Rosie started calling me Nana Grace. I never corrected her. I helped babysit when Hannah needed it, told her I used to teach and worked with Rosie on her reading. She started reading above grade level. Day by day it all started to feel easier. Still I kept a small notebook under my pillow. Every lie I told, I wrote it down. Just in case I ever had to remember who Grace was supposed to be. No kids. No Savannah. No Megan. No Josh. Just Grace and her little trailer by the marsh. But at night sometimes I'd wake up gasping. Not from fear exactly, more from the thought that someone might show up at my door and say my real name out loud. I wasn't grieving anymore. I was hiding. And even though no one had come for me yet, I knew it was only a matter of time. Back in Savannah, the moment my daughter stepped off the plane and pulled into the driveway, expecting to waltz into their little transition plan, everything fell apart. Megan was the first to call. When it went to voicemail, she sent a text, "Hey, we're back. Can we stop by tomorrow to go over logistics?" I didn't respond, obviously. By the time they noticed the locks had been changed, the for sale sign gone, and the mailbox stuffed with final notices and bank account closure letters, the panic kicked in. Josh tried calling Eric, my attorney. Eric was polite but firm. "I'm no longer authorized to discuss anything with you." When Megan showed up at his office, he didn't even buzz her in. Travis tried circling around the back of the house to peek through a window, but the place was empty. No furniture, no photos, not even a nail left in the wall. That night they called the police and filed a missing persons report. But the detective assigned wasn't buying their urgency, especially after Travis casually admitted they'd been in Lake Tahoe the entire time I was in the ICU. Worse, they admitted they hadn't visited me once during the full 8 days I was in critical care. Within 48 hours, word spread. First through Mrs. Adler, my neighbor who never could stand Megan's smug little smile, then through a local Facebook group. Someone posted, "Anyone know where Ms. Harris went? Her family listed the house while she was in the hospital." The comments blew up. Someone shared a screenshot of the real estate flyer, date-stamped and lined up with hospital records another user pulled from public data. This woman was fighting for her life and they were vacationing. The outrage didn't stay online. It went public. A local reporter showed up on their lawn. Then a bigger outlet picked it up as a human interest story gone sideways. Suddenly Megan, the golden child, was getting heckled in the Greenwise Market parking lot. People were calling her a monster. Josh tried to hold back tears in a shaky news interview, mumbling, "We thought she was okay. We never imagined she'd just disappear." But no one was buying it. Someone clipped that interview and threw it on TikTok, adding a remix of her voice over shots of sunbathers in Lake Tahoe. Caption: Vacation vultures. People started tagging Dr. Mitchell, calling for elder abuse investigations. Some even began digging through Travis's bankruptcy filings and speculating maybe I hadn't vanished after all. Maybe I'd just finally wised up. And the more they spiraled, the quieter I stayed, hidden in my tiny Vermont trailer, watching it all unfold on Hannah's old laptop when she wasn't home. People in the comments were calling me a hero, a legend, grandma gone ghost. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt safe. I felt unseen. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't owe a damn thing to anybody. It had been nearly 2 months since I left Savannah. I was starting to believe maybe, just maybe, the world had moved on. The headlines had faded. My name hadn't trended in weeks. I finally found a rhythm, one that didn't involve checking behind me every time a door creaked. Most mornings I volunteered at the library. Afternoons I helped Hannah pick up shifts by watching Rosie, who'd fully accepted me as her second mom without hesitation. When her 7th birthday rolled around, we decorated the town center room together with dollar store streamers, mismatched paper plates, and store-bought pizza. It was nothing fancy, but it was perfect. Rosie asked me to sit beside her while she opened presents, and I did. Someone handed me a party hat and I put it on without even thinking. One of the moms, young, blonde, always filming, recorded a quick 30-second clip of Rosie opening a gift. Just something for Instagram. Nothing special. Except I was in the shot the entire time, smiling, passing gifts, helping Rosie read the cards out loud. 3 days later, while I was shelving library returns, Hannah came flying in, phone shaking in her hand. "Grace, you need to see this. Right now." That little video? It had been reposted by a mommy blog, then picked up by a TikTok account. They'd cross-referenced the birthday footage with old screenshots from the Savannah story. Caption: "Found her. Grandma Ghost is alive and well in Vermont. New name. New family. And honestly, we love her even more now." My stomach dropped. Comments were flooding in. Some were praising me, calling it a legendary escape. Others were accusing me of being cruel, of abandoning my real family like I was some kind of villain. Worse, the video tagged the actual name of the town. My location was out. I collapsed behind the returns desk, heart hammering like it had in that ICU bed. Hannah crouched down next to me, confused. What's going on? I looked her right in the eyes. And for the first time I told the truth. My name's not Grace. It's Diane. Diane Harris. I didn't run away from my family. I escaped them. She didn't press. She didn't even blink. She just nodded and said, "Okay. So, what do we do now?" That's when I knew. I couldn't keep hiding forever. Not because I was ready, but because someone would come. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because I knew what was on the way. And I didn't want to waste 1 second pretending I was still safe. By morning the video had over 1 million views. I was tagged in dozens of conspiracy threads. Some people now believed I had faked the stroke just to pull off some elaborate revenge plan. Funny how the world can flip you from victim to villain the moment you take your power back. I turned off the Wi-Fi, cleared the browser, packed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags just in case. But before I could figure out where I might go next, I saw it. A silver Toyota with Georgia plates creeping past the library parking lot, slow and steady like a shark in shallow water. I didn't need to see the driver. I knew it was Sarah. Something in the way she parked too perfectly, like she still thought a gold star might fix this. She stepped out in jeans and a cardigan like we were meeting for brunch, not after months of silence and scandal. She stood near the entrance holding a paper coffee cup, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I watched her from behind the shelves for 5 full minutes. Then I stepped outside. She didn't speak at first. Just stared at me like she was trying to decide if I was real. Finally she said, "Mom, please don't walk away." Her voice cracked on mom, and for a second, the old instinct to comfort her flared up, like a reflex I hadn't fully buried. But I didn't move. She came a little closer. "You're not a ghost. You're not done. You can come home." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I already had the funeral. You just didn't come." She flinched like I'd slapped her. I thought she might yell, blame Travis or Megan or the doctors or the timing, something rehearsed. But she didn't. She just stood there, clutching that coffee like it was the only thing holding her together. "We didn't know," she whispered. We thought we were helping." I let out a loud, ugly laugh, the kind that says you don't get to rewrite this. "You left me to die alone in a hospital," I said. "And when I didn't, you tried to box me up like old furniture. Don't pretend you didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing." She started crying, silent, stiff, like she was doing everything she could not to break down on camera. And I let her sit in it for a long moment before I finally said, "I'm not coming back, Sarah. I found something better. A new life. One where I don't have to pretend we were ever okay." Then I turned and walked away. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just steady, the kind of walk that lets someone know this isn't for show. This is closure. The kind she never once offered me. 3 days later, a plain manila envelope showed up in the library return slot, addressed to Grace. I knew that handwriting. It was Sarah's. But I didn't open it. I let it sit there on the kitchen table for 2 nights, untouched. I didn't know whether I wanted to read more apologies, or just light the whole thing on fire. When I finally tore it open, it wasn't a letter from her. It was one from me. My own shaky handwriting scrawled on the back of a hospital intake form. Something I wrote in the ICU when I truly thought I wouldn't make it. I'd written it for them. "If I don't wake up," it began, "just know I already forgave you. But if I do, please come. I'm scared." The words hit me the second I saw them. I remembered writing them like it was yesterday. I had begged Brian, the nurse, to make sure one of the others would see it, just in case they ever came. He later told me he slipped it into my belongings bag, when no one showed. I guess they found it while digging through what was left of my house. Sarah must have read it after finding me in Vermont. And now here it was, back in my hands, like a ghost. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I read it once. Then again. Then folded it neatly and slid it into the same notebook where I kept every made-up detail about who Grace was. I tucked it right next to the line where I'd once written, "No contact equals peace." The next morning Megan emailed the library. I had no idea how she got the address. Her message was short. "I'd like to come. Just once. No Travis. No cameras. Just me. I stared at the screen a long time. I didn't know what I wanted from her. Maybe nothing. Maybe just to see her face when she realized I wasn't the weak, predictable woman she had walked away from, but someone who buried her grief and rebuilt a life no one helped her build. Eventually I typed back, "One visit. That's it. Bring the letter with you." When Hannah got home that night, I told her Megan was coming. She didn't say much. Just nodded and asked if I wanted her there. I told her no. "This one's mine." Megan showed up on a gray Saturday morning. Dressed like she was headed to a church brunch. White blouse, crisp jeans, heels completely wrong for gravel. She kept checking her watch like she had somewhere more important to be. We met at the cemetery just outside of town, the one I'd passed 100 times but never stepped into. I chose that place for one reason. It was neutral, it was quiet, and no one lies when they're standing near someone who can't answer back. I was already sitting on the bench beside Mark's headstone when she walked up, holding a tote bag like a shield. For a moment, I saw her the way she used to be. A teenager in a hospital waiting room holding my hand while we prayed for her dad. She didn't say hello. Just handed me the envelope and sat down a few feet away, leaving space like she thought I might slap her. I opened the envelope. It was the ICU letter again. Only this time it was covered in blue pen marks. Notes. Margin scribbles. Her responses to my words written back when I thought I was dying. We didn't know it was that serious. I thought Sarah would go. "I'm sorry, Mom. I was scared." She stared at her hands and said softly, "I didn't know how to deal with watching you get weak." I let the silence stretch so long it felt like the sky might break. Then I said, "I didn't need you to be strong. I needed you to show up." She nodded like she'd told herself that same thing 100 times already. "You think I don't hate myself?" she asked. "You think I sleep at night?" I looked right at her and said, "I think you sleep better than I did, wondering why my daughters couldn't bother to hold my hand while I bled in a hospital bed." That broke her. She started crying, not performative tears, not damage control. Just real aching sobs muffled into her sleeve, like she didn't want Mark to hear. "We were selfish," she said. "We thought we had more time." I looked at his stone and said, "So did he." I didn't forgive her. Not out loud. Not inside. But I didn't scream either. I just told her the truth. "You and Sarah are grown women. You made a choice. And now that the world's seen what that choice looked like, you don't get to rewrite it." She asked if she could visit again. I said no. She asked if she could write. I told her she could send letters to Hannah's P.O. box, but I wasn't making any promises about reading them. When we stood up, she reached for a hug. I stepped back. Not angry, just clear. "That part of me?" I said. "You already buried. And this time I got to choose the funeral." The next morning I sat at my little table in the trailer, opened my notebook, the same one I used for fake names and old passwords, and I wrote one last letter. This letter wasn't for Megan or for Sarah or even for Mark. It was for me. "You did it." That's what I wrote at the top. Simple. Honest. True. "You got out." Then I made a list, everything I'd left behind. A house that had grown cold. A name that had been forgotten. And a family that believed blood was the same thing as love. And after that I listed what I'd gained. Quiet mornings. Conversations that didn't feel like negotiations. The laughter of a child that didn't come with guilt or expectation. And a woman named Hannah, who saw me not for what I'd sacrificed in my old life, but for what I brought to hers now. I folded the letter. Sealed it. And on the front I wrote in big firm letters, "Grace Bennett." Then I tucked it into a shoebox under the bed, right next to Rosie's drawings, and the only photograph I'd kept of my daughters, taken long before they ever understood what the word inheritance meant. That afternoon I helped Hannah trim the hedges in front of her porch. The sun was warm and the wind smelled like salt. And when Rosie came running over with a chipped little seashell in her hand shouting, "Nana, look what I found," I didn't even flinch at the name. I just smiled and said, "Perfect. Let's go build something with it." We sat together on the sand for over an hour, stacking shells, knocking them over, laughing the way people do when they finally feel free. Not because everything was healed, but because I'd finally learned I didn't need to be healed to feel whole again. I didn't check the news. I didn't open the mailbox. I didn't wonder if another letter would come. The story they tell about me now? That's not mine anymore. It's theirs, to explain, to twist, to post. The world's to argue over. But here, in this quiet town with no history and no expectations, I'm not Diane Harris. Not the mother they abandoned. Not the grandmother they tried to sell for parts. I'm Grace. Just Grace. And from now on, I'm the only one who gets to decide who calls me anything else.